Most people don't think twice about what's watching them. A baby monitor, a hotel remote, a camera you set up yourself. But what if I told you someone else was watching you through them? These stories aren't about ghosts. They're about real people who found out far too late that they were being watched. And the worst part, they still don't know how deep it went. Because these cameras weren't just recording, they were streaming. This is Mr. H. You're listening to Masked Horror. There was a camera inside the baby monitor. I never liked buying used baby stuff, but we were broke. First kid, first house, and my wife had left her job to be home with our newborn. So when we found a lightly used baby monitor at a garage sale, still in the box, looked brand new, for $15, I didn't think twice. We plugged it in that night. It worked fine. The video feed wasn't super crisp, but clear enough to see the crib, and the audio wasn't great. It even had night vision though. We started using it every night, placing it on a shelf across from the crib, and that was that. Until maybe a week later, when we noticed our daughter waking up around the same time each night, 3:19 a.m. It got to the point where we started checking the time on our phones whenever we heard her cry. Always 3:19, give or take a minute. We joked about it at first. Maybe she sees ghosts, my wife said one night, trying to laugh it off. But it was wearing on both of us. She'd wake up wailing, eyes wide open, staring at one specific corner of the room, never looking around, always just that one spot. It gave me a weird feeling I couldn't shake, so I did what most paranoid new dads would do. I checked the monitor. It looked normal. The lens was clean. The angle was fine. But as I was turning it in my hands, I noticed something strange. There was a tiny pinhole on the side of the housing, smaller than a pencil tip. It didn't look like a manufacturing defect or damage. It looked intentional. I unscrewed the casing, expecting dust or maybe a loose wire. What I found made my stomach flip. There was another camera, a secondary lens, embedded deep inside, facing outward toward the crib. The internal wiring had been altered to allow a second feed. And it wasn't just a second recording device, it was broadcasting. There was a tiny antenna board and a network module tucked into the base. I plugged the device into my laptop with a diagnostic USB, something I had from work. The feed wasn't going to our monitor only, it was also being streamed somewhere else. If you're still here, this is where it starts getting real. I traced the IP. I work in IT, and I know enough to follow breadcrumbs. The stream was being sent through a tunneling server to a proxy, but with some digging, I was able to narrow it down. The origin, an old server cluster registered under a name I didn't recognize, but hosted in-state. When I checked the address listed to the original network, just out of curiosity, it was an address in our county, but not current, from 8 years ago. A guy used to live around here years back. He was arrested for stalking a woman and secretly recording her through her own webcam. The case didn't make headlines, but it was real. I found it online on a thread linking local sex offender registries. This guy had done jail time, then disappeared. That's when I realized what this really was. The camera wasn't installed by someone who wanted to monitor their own kid. It had been left behind, then resold, either on purpose or by someone who had no idea what they were selling. We threw the monitor out that night, not gently. I smashed it with a hammer in the backyard and double-bagged the pieces before trash day. We bought a new one, still sealed from the store. But our daughter kept waking up at 3:19 for weeks. Then one night, she stopped. She hasn't done it since. We never found out if that guy was still watching, or if the signal was archived, saved somewhere in some disgusting collection. I filed a report and even brought in the USB module I pulled. But unless a crime had just happened, they basically shrugged. We never got contacted, and the police didn't do much. Sometimes, when I check the baby monitor now, I still feel like I'm not the only one looking at the screen. And I don't think I'll ever fully trust what's on the other side of a lens again. Why was there a camera in my hotel room? I travel a lot for work, mostly boring conference stuff, hotels, airports, emails until midnight. I don't mind it, but after what happened last winter, I can't look at hotel rooms the same way anymore. It was a mid-range chain hotel, nothing sketchy, clean, corporate, forgettable. I checked in late after my flight got delayed, ordered some food, and passed out watching TV. It wasn't until the next night, when I was flipping through channels, that I noticed something weird about the remote. It felt heavy, like heavier than it should have been, clunky. The buttons were kind of sticky too, which was gross but not unheard of. I figured maybe they just used those cheap universal remotes you can buy in bulk. But out of boredom, I popped open the battery cover. There was a red blinking light. It wasn't bright, just this tiny, faint pulse near the corner of the board, right next to a micro USB port. I didn't think that was supposed to be there. I took the batteries out and held the remote up to the light, and that's when I saw it. There was a lens, embedded deep in the plastic, pointed outward through the infrared panel, so it looked like a regular remote sensor. I froze. If you've ever stayed alone in a hotel room, this part might hit you a little differently. I didn't touch anything else. I took photos of it, grabbed a napkin to wrap it, and went down to the front desk. I told the guy working the night shift that I found something weird in my room, and I didn't feel comfortable staying there. He looked confused. Then he said he'd send up security to take a look, said to wait in the lobby. I waited 25 minutes. No one came. When I went back up to the room 412, the remote was gone. Not replaced with a new one, just gone, like it had never been there. I checked my bag twice to make sure I hadn't brought it down with me. Nothing. I showed the front desk the photos, and the guy just got this weird, tight expression and said, "Let me call the manager." 5 minutes later, a different employee, some woman I'd never seen before, comes out and says, "Sir, we have no record of any devices like that in our inventory. If you're uncomfortable, we'd be happy to help you check out." Just like that. No report, no concern, no refund, not even another room. I left, booked a room across town, even though it was almost midnight. Something about how quickly they wanted me gone, it felt off. Now here's the part that still messes with me. 2 weeks after I got home, a USB drive showed up in the mail. No return address, just a padded envelope and a thumb drive taped to a piece of paper with the words, "Sleep well?" I plugged it into an old laptop I never used online, just in case. The folder was called 412. Inside were video files, over 100 of them, clips ranging from a few seconds to several minutes, all night vision. Some were empty hotel rooms. Others had people in them, men, women, couples, sleeping, watching TV, changing clothes. And then there were 4 clips of me. Me lying in bed. Me sitting on the edge of the mattress, texting. me getting up to use the bathroom, all from a slightly low angle, like from a nightstand or TV table. The last clip was the longest, just under 6 minutes, of me sleeping, completely still. At the very end of that clip, I swear to God, the lens moves. There's a tiny twitch, like the device is being picked up. Then the feed cuts to black. I turned the drive over to the police, filed a report, but they couldn't find anything, they said. Was it the guy at the front desk, security, the manager? I still have no idea. They said without a suspect or identifying info, there wasn't much they could do. I asked if they'd gotten other reports from that hotel. Never heard back. I followed up, called, emailed, nothing. I thought about suing, but we'll see. I just need to find the right lawyer. I don't use hotel remotes anymore. I barely sleep now when I travel. I put a chair under the door. I unplug anything I don't recognize because I don't know who sent that drive or what else they have. The camera was pointed at my dog. I live alone, but I'm not really alone. I've got this anxious rescue mutt named Harlow. She's a pit lab mix with this sad, expressive face that makes you feel guilty even when you've done nothing wrong. I adopted her during lockdown, and we've been inseparable ever since. She's not great with other people though, especially men, so I installed a pet cam in the living room to keep an eye on her while I was at work. Basic plug-and-play Wi-Fi camera, motion alerts, two-way audio, nothing fancy. For the first couple of weeks, everything was normal. I'd check the feed from my phone during lunch, maybe talk to her through the mic. She'd perk up, look around, settle down again. Kind of sweet, actually. Then the skips started. I'd be reviewing clips from the night before, just being curious, like what she does while I sleep, and I started noticing little gaps, tiny jumps in the timeline between 2 and 4 a.m. A minute here, 2 minutes there. At first, I figured it was just connection issues or auto cleanup, but the gaps kept growing. Then one night, I saw something. If you've ever felt watched in your own home, this part might feel a little too close. There was this one clip, timestamped 3:02 a.m., where the feed starts with Harlow asleep on the couch. Everything's quiet. Then a figure slowly enters frame. Just a shape, blurry and half lit in the background. You can barely see them crouching next to the bookshelf, reaching up toward the camera. They don't touch it. They just adjust it. Not much, just enough to tilt the lens slightly lower, pointing it more directly at Harlow's bed. Then they back out of frame. I watched it 5 times, 10. The timestamp says the clip is 40 seconds, but I only got maybe 15 seconds of actual footage. The rest is static. I called the police, showed them the video. They came by, took a report, checked the locks, the windows. No signs of forced entry. The front door was still locked. They asked if anyone else had a key. I said no. I even changed the locks after moving in. Then one of the officers asked, completely serious, "Is it possible you repositioned the camera yourself while sleepwalking?" I told him no, but he didn't seem convinced. They left without much to go on, said I should keep an eye out and call if anything else happens, but something had already happened. That night, I unplugged the camera. I couldn't stand the thought of someone, or something, accessing it remotely, or worse, being in the apartment while I was asleep. The next morning, Harlow refused to go into the living room. She stood at the threshold, whining low, tail between her legs. I tried coaxing her in with treats, but she wouldn't budge. She just kept staring at that same spot, the one the figure adjusted the camera to face. I tried turning the camera back on just to check the feed again, but it wouldn't connect. The app showed it as inactive. I rebooted the router. Nothing. The indicator light stayed dead. That was 2 months ago. The weird part is, ever since I unplugged it, the camera hasn't worked. Not even after replacing it with a brand new model. Every time I try to install a new one, it connects fine, until around 2 a.m. Then it bricks. Same time, every time. I've swapped routers, changed passwords, moved the furniture, bought a brand new unit from a different company. Same result. I haven't caught anything else on video. I haven't seen anyone inside. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear movement in the living room. Not loud, just a faint shifting, like someone readjusting their position on the couch. And Harlow, she still won't go into the living room after dark unless I'm with her. She now sleeps with me in my room. Honestly, I don't know what the camera caught. I just know, whatever it was, it wanted to see her.